Welcome back, everyone. I'm really glad you're here. I have been sitting with what to talk about this week. And honestly, this has been one of those weeks where I don't feel like I have something that's neatly packaged to offer you. Because if I'm being totally honest, I'm feeling a little thin. Not in a crisis way. I mean, nothing is falling apart necessarily. It's just that my capacity feels lower than usual. I am tired. Some things have happened that have kind of knocked the wind out of me a little bit. And I've been really, really emotional, like huge emotional releases this week. Life is just hard sometimes. There's no escaping it. And the healing journey is whiplash sometimes. And I feel like I've been on a roller coaster ride of it lately. Like one minute I'm thinking, okay, I'm healing, I've got this. And then something hits me straight on, and I'm faced with the reality of, nope, just joking. Keep doing it. It's been rough. And I almost didn't record today because of that. Because there's this part of me that's like, Brittany, if you're going to show up here, you need to show up well. But then there's this other part that's like, yeah, but what happens when well isn't available? And I have a feeling I'm not the only one who has weeks like this, where you're still doing everything, right? You're still showing up for your kids and your responsibilities, your job, your life. But internally, everything just feels harder. Like your patience is running out faster, your tolerance is lower. Small things just feel bigger than they should. And then those moments happen, the ones that actually matter, like when your child or your partner or your friend, just someone needs you, or they're upset about something, or they need help or attention or maybe connection. And you can feel it in your body before you even really have a conscious thought of it. And it's, I can't do this. I have nothing left to give. And that thought is so loaded because it's not just about being tired. It's not just about needing a break. It turns into, what kind of a person feels this way? Why can't I just show up? I should be able to do this. And so when we're faced with that, we do what we've been taught to do. And for some of us, that means we push through it. We override those feelings. We try to be present and say the right things and respond the right way, but it's just tight. Like you're there, but not really there. Or some of us go in the other direction. We pull back. We kind of shut down. Maybe we delay it or distract from it, or we just don't engage in the way that we know that we could. But then that doesn't feel very good either, because now there's guilt or frustration or resentment or that lingering feeling of, I'm disappearing and no one is noticing. And I think this is where so many of us, at least for me, we get stuck. And it's this quiet and constant tension between forcing ourselves to show up and feeling like we're falling short when we can't. Because somewhere along the way, we have picked up this idea that showing up means being at our best, being patient and present and emotionally available all the time. And if we can't access that version of ourselves, it really does feel like we have nothing left to give. But I've been thinking about this a lot this week, and I'm starting to think that I don't actually think that's true. I don't think it's that you have nothing left. I think it's that what you do have left doesn't match the standard that you think you're supposed to meet. And those are two very different things. I have to tell you that the first question that came to my mind when I started thinking about how to tackle this topic today was, how can I keep showing up when I have nothing left to give? But when I thought about that, that really only reinforced this problem that I've been having, this idea that we have to override the reality of feeling this way and show up anyway. And if I am being genuine in this work, which is something I really strive to be, then the answer has to be about alignment and awareness and transformation, right? Not endurance at all costs. So I'm not going to tell you how to push through these feelings of depletion. Instead, I want to sit in a different question today, and that is, what does it look like to show up when you're not at 100% or 80% or maybe even 50%? What does it look like to be in relationship with the people that matter most to us, including ourselves, when you only have maybe 10% available? Or in my case this week, even less. And can that be enough? So let's just stick with this idea for a minute, that feeling of I have nothing left, because I'm hoping that's not what's actually happening. Okay. I don't think that's what's actually happening. I know that in the moment that it's happening, it does feel true. Like in your body, it feels like a full stop. Like there's just nothing accessible to you. That is literally how I have felt for the past 2 weeks. I'm going through the motions, but I'm ready to give out at any moment. But if we slow it down a little, I think what's really happening, at least in my experiences, I've tried to really understand it. It's not that you're empty. You just don't have access to the version of yourself that you want to be. Okay. You don't have easy patience. You don't have that extra emotional bandwidth. You don't have this spaciousness to sit and listen and respond in that calm and grounded way that maybe you usually are able to do it. So your brain just kind of labels all of it the same, and it labels it as nothing. But nothing and not what I want to have available are very different. Because if you really did truly have nothing, you wouldn't even be aware that you had nothing. You wouldn't feel that tension, that pull between this matters and that feeling of, I can't do it. That awareness alone means there is something still online. It might be small, it might not feel like very much, but it's not nothing. And I think this really matters because when we tell ourselves we have nothing left, it creates this kind of all or nothing pressure. Like either I show up 100% or I fail. And that's where we either push way past our limits or we check out completely. And there's no middle space in that. But our capacity, from what we know, doesn't actually work like that. It's not on or off or 0 or 100. It moves, right? It fluctuates throughout the day, throughout the week. And it depends on our sleep and our stress and our hormones and everything else that we're carrying. Your capacity is constantly shifting, minute by minute even. And a lot of what we talk about in this work, right? Your window of tolerance, your nervous system. You've heard me say these things. This is it. This is what it is right here. When your system is more regulated, you have access to more of yourself, access to what makes you who you are, whatever that might be, whether that's more patience, more creativity, more flexibility, more fun. But when your system is taxed, you don't become a worse parent. You just have less access. Less of a buffer between what's happening out here and how you respond in here. So of course those moments feel harder. Of course it feels like I don't have it in me to do this today. But instead of interpreting that as a failure, we really need to start recognizing it as information. Like, oh, okay, my capacity is lower right now. Not as judgment and not something to override or ignore. It's just data. Because when we can see it that way, it opens up something that we usually skip right over, and that's our choice. Now, it's not the choice to suddenly have more energy or more patience. This isn't about faking capacity. It's about the choice to work with the capacity that you actually have in the moment. And I think this is where things really take off, okay? Because if you're not operating from, I have to be at my best right now, and you're also not collapsing into, I have nothing, so I'm out. This is that middle space that opens up where you can still be in the moment. It's just you're doing it differently, not at 100%, but not disconnected either. And that's where I want to go today because most of us were never really shown what that actually looks like. We were taught how to push through, like just show up anyway, or we learned how to shut down. But this middle way is something we really have to learn and focus on consciously. So imagine that you're in one of these moments where your capacity is low, where someone needs something from you, and you can feel that inner voice saying, I can't do this. I have nothing. Now, most of us don't pause here and think, I wonder what my options are here. We just go into whatever pattern we practiced the most. And usually it's one of two, and I've already talked about them. But the first one is pushing through. And this one can look really good on the outside. Okay, you stay, you respond, you try to be present. You might even say all the right things. Okay, but internally, it's effort, like incredible effort, because you're overriding your body. You're kind of like clawing your way through the moment. And sometimes this dam that's containing your emotions, sometimes it holds. Okay, but sometimes it doesn't. And that's when all of these emotions start to leak out, and they come out in your tone, in your expressions, in the way your patience runs out just a little bit too quickly, or you go from calm to snapping and yelling like really fast. And then you're left cleaning that up too. And what's underneath that pattern a lot of the time is this belief that this is what good parents do. You show up no matter what. You put your needs aside. You give even when it costs you. And maybe that's what was modeled for you. Or honestly, for some of you, maybe it's what you didn't get. So now you're trying really, really hard to make sure that your kids always do. But either way, it turns into this kind of pressure to perform, even when your system is saying, this is too much. But then there's this other pattern, which is pulling back. This is 100% my default pattern, just so you know. And even though this one is quieter, it's just as heavy. You disengage. You distract from the real feelings that are going on. You say, no, not right now, or no, I'm fine, but you're not really staying connected. Okay, maybe you stay physically, like you're in the room, but emotionally, you're gone. And again, it makes sense because if your system is overwhelmed, of course, it's going to look for a way to create space. This isn't a character flaw, okay? This is protection. But what usually follows is guilt. So you end up swinging between these two places, overriding yourself and withdrawing from the moment. And neither one of those things feels aligned with who you actually want to be. Because the cost of one is you, and the cost of the other is the connection that we really want. And when those are the only two options we think we have, of course, it's going to feel like we're constantly falling short. But what we started to understand a minute ago is that there's this middle space. And just in full transparency, this middle space is not perfect. It doesn't look like the version of you that has all the patience and all the presence and all the right words, but it also doesn't require you to disappear. And it's in this space where you can stay connected and honor your limits at the same time. So what does that actually look like? If pushing through doesn't feel good, but pulling away doesn't feel good either, then what's in the middle? What does it look like to stay without abandoning yourself in the process? I think it starts with redefining what showing up even means, because most of us have tied showing up to the way we perform or the way that other people see us behaving, right? It's connected to how patient we are or how present we are or how well we're responding or how many times we don't yell or that we don't punish. But what if showing up isn't about giving your best all the time? What if it's just about staying in relationship with what you actually have available? Not this ideal version of you that you have in your mind, and not the fully resourced, well-rested, emotionally spacious version that I feel like I don't have access to that version very often. But the real version of you, like that's in the moment, even if that version is tired or overwhelmed or on edge. Because here's what I think is true. No one actually needs a perfect version of you. They need a version of you that's real and connected. And those two things don't require you to override yourself or make yourself invisible. They require you to include yourself. So instead of asking, how do I show up better right now? Ask, how do I stay connected without abandoning myself? Because when you leave yourself, when you override your limits and your capacity and your signals, you might still be physically present, but something in the connection gets strained. It's harder to be soft. It's harder to be attuned. And your nervous system is still leading the interaction, even if the words are all the right ones and everything sounds good. But when you stay with yourself, even if what you have is limited, that's where the shift happens because you're not forcing and you're not performing. You're just there. And that's honest. And that's grounded in what's real. Now, this might sound like I want to hear this, but I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now. Is there a way we can maybe come back to it later? Or I don't have a lot of energy right now, but I can sit with you for just a minute. Or even sometimes it's just sitting next to the other person without a big response, just letting your presence be quieter. Because showing up doesn't always mean engagement. Okay. Sometimes it just looks like non abandonment. Okay. It means you're not leaving the moment, but you're not leaving yourself either. And this is where we start to build something really different because instead of teaching that connection only happens when you're at your best, you're showing that connection can still exist even when things aren't perfect. You can be connected and tired. You can be connected and upset. You can be connected even when the moment is a little bit messy. And that's actually a much more sustainable kind of connection because it doesn't depend on always having more to give, but it's one that can kind of ebb and flow with real life in real time. So this middle space isn't about being perfect. It's about staying in the relationship in a way that's honest and that allows you to be in your capacity. Okay, now I know that sounds simple, but in practice, it can honestly also feel really unfamiliar because most of us weren't really shown how to do that. If you're listening and thinking, okay, that makes sense, but it still feels really hard to do that, you're not wrong. Because this isn't just about learning a new way to respond. It's about unlearning something that's been wired in you for a long time. A lot of us have this identity of being the one that holds everything, the one who shows up, the one who keeps it together, the one who makes sure that everyone else is okay. And there can be a lot of pride in that, but that also brings with it a lot of pressure. Because if that's who you are, then moments where you can't show up the way that you want to, they're not just hard, they actually feel like you are failing, not just at what's going on, but at being yourself, at being you. And underneath that, there's always this deeper fear of letting other people down or as being seen as unavailable or not enough. Maybe there's even a younger part of you that learned if I don't show up, then no one else will. So, of course, your system pushes you to override yourself. Of course, it feels uncomfortable to stay in that middle space because it's asking you to do something different, not just behaviorally, but internally. To trust that connection isn't going to just disappear because you're not at your best. To trust that you can be a steady and safe presence even at 20%, even when you're that limited. And that's not something that you think your way into. It's something that you have to practice, where you choose to stay without pushing past yourself, where you let your enough be enough, even when it doesn't feel like it. The goal here isn't to become someone who has endless capacity. That is not real, and it's not even possible. The goal is to become someone who knows how to honor their limits without losing connection. And that's very, very different. And it's a real strength. So maybe this week, we don't try to give more. Maybe we don't try to be more patient or more present or more anything, except maybe a little more honest about what's actually available to us right now. And in those moments where you feel that familiar voice saying, I have nothing left to give, instead of pushing past it or pulling away from it, just pause for a second and ask yourself, what do I have right now? Even if the answer is very little. Can I stay for a minute? Can I soften my tone? Can I let them see that I'm here, even if I'm not fully available? Because showing up isn't all or nothing. It's not 0 or 100. It's relative. It fluctuates. And relationships are allowed to have quieter moments, slower moments, where things aren't as connected or easy or fluid as we wish they were. But we are still there. Before we go, I want to say one more time that capacity and showing up and creating space between our circumstances and our reactions are all connected to the nervous system. If you feel like you're ready to move from pushing through to actually understanding and feeling supported on that nervous system level, you can find that in the 5th workbook of the Transformed series. It's called Regulated, and it goes really deep into everything that we've talked about today. You can find Regulated and the rest of that series at theparentinglab.org. Thank you so much for being here and for letting me process through my own challenges in this space with you. So grateful that this is a space where I can show up as I am, even when it's not 100%. I will keep healing and I will keep showing up. And I hope you do too. I will see you all next week here in the Parenting Lab, where we will continue to explore the art and science of parenting and put your parenting to the test. Take care, everyone.